everyone talks about the Great Replacement, and it's kind of in reference to the Great Population Replacement. So it's at this point, it's not a question of is it happening, it's a question of do we want it to happen. But
the dwindling numbers in the pews has been anything but organic. It has been a coordinated effort, starting specifically when it comes to North America and even the European states as well, through cultural Marxism and taking the American example, if I may, for as a microcosm here. If you look to kind of the mid-century, and you see these American socialists come in, Fabian School, Frankfurt School, Antonio Gramsci, of course, his disciple, Saul Alinsky. What you see is that these people wanted to manufacture chaos in society, so to provide a governmental answer. And they did so. They manufactured this chaos by undoing the moralizing and stabilizing factors in our society. And what was that? Two things: the church and family.
exactly.
And none of this is conspiracy. All of it was incredibly well documented. Stalin, Marx, Gramsci, all of these guys talked about how America was like a healthy body, and its resistance was it was threefold: its patriotism, its morality, and its spiritual life. And if you were able to deprive America of these things, then indeed you could rot her from within. And that's what we've seen. And you see so many great paleocons, etc., the Pat Buchanans of the world talk about how, America and the Western civilization's issues and problems are not economic, they're not social, they're not political, but they are indeed moral. And the degradation of the Christian character of Europe and of America has indeed not only led to, but acted as a catalyst to the demise of our great civilization.
In Europe, the Great Replacement is happening, the Great Population Replacement. The thing is, even if you stopped it, Europe would still have serious problems, the US as well, because we've lost all sense, like we have different conceptions of morality
when
now.
you're importing in masses these people, the only way that can be in any way successful or have any hope for success is if they assimilate. And there are two questions when you're looking at the question of immigration and assimilation. Number one, who are we bringing in? Are they going to be able to assimilate? And when you're bringing in, like Syria, Iran, Pakistan, and not like Germany and Poland, guess what happens? A little harder to assimilate. And number two is, what are they assimilating to? What is it? It's moral relativism. It's crap. It's garbage. It's debauchery. It's filth. It's literally the Weimar Republic. I'm sorry to say, but I mean, come on into America the Great, and like, by the way, there's a Nicki Minaj poster outside of your kids, school with TNA everywhere. Like, isn't it great? Isn't freedom the best?
That's a really good point,
degenerate.
though. That's a really good point that I've never personally heard anyone bring up before. But it's a very good point. Why would anyone want to assimilate to this?
No.
Coming in, they'd be horrified.
Well, of course, and that's why you see them say, actually, no, our way is better because at least we have rules in this way. But I do believe that God created us with an appetite, a hunger, and thirst for order. So it's no bloody wonder that when the world has devolved into chaos, that there is now a resurgence. And so, you see some people kind of LARPing towards, fashy tendencies, etc. We have the perfect code, and it is natural law, and it is indeed a Christian cultural consensus, one that we have seen in the 1960s America imbued every part of both popular and high culture, and it acted as a moralizing force to even a much more tempered immigration flow. And the replacement is going to lead us astray. But I'm a boomer these days. You're younger than me, okay? I gotta stick with the thought when it comes to mine. And I'm often caused to think about what Gavin McInnes told me, where he's like, do you ever think that these guys who were crafting the churches and painting these things are just chiseling away, and they're inspired by the hand of God, and they're taking, like, Holy Spirit just sort of takes over. So I'm at one of these churches, and I'm outside, and I'm like, whoa. Like, it's one of those churches where you're like, how? How did
humans make it? I think the same thing. How is it possible? Like, certain paintings, I can't even comprehend it sometimes. Especially when you compare it with a lot of the art that is produced today. That's the thing. It's so, after Vatican II, everything's like fractured and splintered. I heard, I don't know the exact number. There's something like 40,000 denominations of Christianity now. How would you even know where to go if there are so many? so that's the thing. It's the kind of divide and conquer method they've been using. So everything's so confused. They spend most of the time arguing about what is right, and then they don't see the enemies coming in and infiltrating because they're arguing over who's right.
Above government, right? You also have a sense of it's not this unfettered individualism. It's something the individual is most fully realized in the structure of the family, which is, of course, the founding block, the originating organism of the state. And one hand washes the other, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Everything should be symbiotic. It shouldn't be one against the other. And right now, this unfettered individualism we have, chasing after these appetites as opposed to any sort of structured and ordered and noble goal for both God and country and family, it's led us to a most profound sense of emptiness. Yeah. And when you're empty and you're directionless, well, guess what? People can massage you in any way that they damn well please. And I regret to inform our audience that there are a lot of people who are doing the massaging from higher levels that do not have your best interest in mind, let alone your families if you are blessed to have one. Mm-hmm. Our friends at America First Media on the Nationalist Review, James Alsop and Nick Fuentes, I said, I believe that we are at this point in our society where, just before a tsunami, just before the big wave comes, yep, everything will recede back, and all of a sudden you see all the crap on the beach. You see all the garbage. That's where I feel we are now. And people are just starting to see, oh God, we've been lied to. Oh God, that's not working. Like, yeah, feminism is crap. You know what I mean? All this stuff, it's all there. But that's just before the wave comes. And I pray to God that wave is one of patriotism, is one of higher birth rates, and is one indeed of a charismatic reinvigoration and resurrection of the true church here on earth. And we know that's going to be what topic Pat Buchanan has written at length about this, and I think it's very, very instructive, and it's that the cultural front lines that Christians typically and Christian lobbies have typically fought along have not been unimportant. Indeed, should we have won those battles, the face of our countries would be extraordinarily different. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes folks will say, well, love your neighbor as yourself. You know what I mean? So, like, welcome all these people in, give the shirt off your back and make sure that they're well fed. Love your neighbor as yourself.
It's one thing to send aid to them if we're so concerned, and if it's the Christian thing to do to help your neighbor, but yeah, at the expense of our countrymen. It's not just that they're all being brought in and it's all wonderful, butterflies and rainbows. It is having serious negative consequences, and we see it now. And that's the thing. It's like any country that wants to preserve their security and identity. Like Poland, for example, their recent independence march. You had all of the mainstream media, all these, liberal blue checkmark Twitter people just saying 60,000 neo-Nazis gathered in Poland. Just like that. Because they are patriotic, because they were chanting, "We want God," which is the most amazing thing ever.
I got really jazzed. I'm not for tattoos, but if I ever was, that's what I get.
Because they were doing this, and because they're like, Islam is not cohesive with our traditions, with our values, then automatically they're all Nazis. That's the thing. They want to demonize this love of country, this wanting to preserve like your homeland. And the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, just saying, screw you. I recently was in Hungary, and just, when I asked Mayor Laszlo, he's the guy who built the fence, the border fence, which they have border patrol there and the border fence, which has cut illegal immigration by over 99%. And before then, they had tons of the migrants coming in. I said, so why, just for those who don't understand, I was just like, why are you guys so against having the migrants come in? He said, because we're normal people. Mm-hmm. We're not crazy.
But we have,
we love our country and want to preserve it.
But we have been brainwashed to believe the opposite, and this is the business of chaos versus order. It's what's natural versus what's unnatural, and we've been told to reject within us very natural sentiments: love of family, love of country, and love of one's own. Not everyone, especially those who have not been raised with a Christian moral ethic, is capable of honoring these principles within a society. Some will subvert them and some will do away with them altogether. And we have allowed the fox into the hen house. It says in the Bible itself, do not throw pearls at swine. We have indeed opened up the jewelry box and just put it into the pig pen. And you know, these things are sacred and they're amazing, but it takes a certain sort of people to live by these principles. And we're saying, you know, maybe Ahmed Muhammad will be able to do just fine. No, he's going to build a madrasa. He's going to go into a Muslim no-go zone. He's going to set police cars on fire, and he's going to make sure that, you know, he can rape his wife and not get accused because Sharia law now exists in his country, which was once, you know, part of the British Empire. So it's this business of civilizations die because of suicide and not because of murder. And hell, this is the greatest mass suicide, and it's against our religion to commit suicide. So Christians, wake up, damn it. It's a holy war. Start acting like it.
And it's now or never. This is the fight. Things are escalating. They're getting, just in the past year alone, it's insane. How, like, because so many people just aren't aware, so they can't see. This is really, we are hurtling towards our own destruction. And if we don't do something now, you're not going to have a chance later. It's time to do something now. Look into George Soros, because his specific goals, which he openly admits to, are this complete dissolution of borders, mix up the entire world, paint everyone who values their homeland, who is explicitly trying to, you know, preserve security and identity of their countries as extremists, to make it not seem normal, but completely radical. They're all his goals, openly.
Last political election presidential election in 2016 in the U.S., I think that the combined efforts of like all these super PACs were something like $2 billion in spending. George Soros just topped up his organizations with $18 billion.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot compete against that.
9 elections there then.
Europe is done, with the exception of Austria, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Kind of, I call it like, the middle, like the donut of the Schengen area, because that's kind of what it looks like. It's like this little like base like circle within the larger Schengen area. With the exception of those guys, the European caliphate is established. It is, and it is a permanent migration crisis because we're not firing at the boats. We're not interning the people on the watch lists. They're here. Muhammad has been the #1 name in London for like a decade now. Okay? So meanwhile, European church-going rates, they're pretty much all under 30% with exception of Poland. And we've allowed ourselves to essentially become unmanned, so to speak, become impotent within the political sphere because we think, we're going to lose our tax-exempt status. Honestly, I say, F them. Lose your tax-exempt status. Start paying your taxes so that you can actually do what you want to do. Same goes for the Christian schools. We've got Catholic schools right here that are teaching kids in grades as young as 6 years old about consent. At 8 years old, they're learning about gender identity theory. In grade 5, they're learning about anal sex. Like, this is stuff where in a Catholic school should not be happening whatsoever. But we say, we don't want to lose our tax exempt. We don't want to lose. You're not a Catholic school anymore if you're teaching this stuff. Literally break away and become private. We're at the stage right now where we have to cut our losses and move forward if we want to achieve anything. The mission is really big right now. Like we need more soldiers on the ground. And so I call everyone, if nothing else, I call you, we're going into Advent, just say a prayer. Honestly, let's say a prayer for Western civilization, for the restoration of borders, of birth rates, and for the love of God within our countries. I pray for borders, birth rates, and the Bible to come back to Western civilization. I mean, we need all hands on deck, and everyone, like the body of Christ, they say, it's like a body, there's the hands, there's the eyes, there's this. Everyone's got their own role, but like we need everyone's talents and gifts on this mission basically right now, because frankly, the evil one has all of his minions working overtime.
Absolutely.